Ali, what is the latest? Are we headed for a shutdown? Because lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have a lot to say about all of this. Tell us what you're hearing.
First of all, thank you for the congratulations and the early tease for the show. I'm up way past my future bedtime, but for you, I will always be available. Look, on the shutdown piece, Congress is clearly playing with fire at this point, because when we watched that vote go down, it really does serve for us to continue to underscore it's really weird and very rare when House Republican leadership puts a bill on the floor that they know is going to fail, but they let it do so publicly anyway. They were trying to make the point. They made it, but now they have nowhere left to go. When we saw the speaker and other top Republicans leave the Capitol tonight, they said, we'll see in terms of if they end up having another vote tomorrow. But if there is no vote tomorrow, then the government's shutting down. And it sounds like there's not going to be a vote tomorrow because they have nothing to vote on, at least nothing that would pass. And we're at the point now where Republicans are trying to blame Democrats for this predicament. Democrats, of course, are pointing out the obvious, which is that they had a bipartisanly negotiated plan. They were more than happy to provide votes for it because it had priorities that both sides wanted. And then Trump, Musk, and Republicans pulled the rug right out from under them while also pulling it out from under their own speaker and left them with a plan that Republicans only negotiated by themselves. And so Democrats are not feeling particularly inclined to help, but they're also not seeing any of the priorities that they feel are important reflected in the package. So there's a real impasse on multiple levels here.
Sam, Charlie Sykes pointed out, did Elon Musk just violate the biggest rule in Trump world? He upstaged Donald Trump, right? This all began with Elon Musk saying this isn't going to work. We got a new idea. And then there was a public embarrassing defeat. Trump doesn't like that.
No, he doesn't. And yes, he did upstage him, or at least he got out in front of him, right? We hadn't heard from Trump yesterday. And then Elon Musk went on this Twitter barrage, something over like 120 tweets. It was really insane. And then finally, we did hear from Trump, and then he wanted something that Musk wasn't even tweeting about, which was raising and then ultimately eliminating the debt limit, which, frankly, a lot of Democrats actually support. At some point, you do have to wonder, will Trump actually like the performance that Elon Musk is putting on? Will he find it grating? Will he feel like he is being outmaneuvered by the world's richest man? And will he tolerate it anymore? And history tells us that at some point in time, this relationship will end, and it will end poorly. That Trump doesn't like the bad publicity. He also doesn't like the impression that he is not the leader in the room. It's just really a question of when it gets to that point. Elon Musk spent a ton of money on electing Trump. Elon Musk has the biggest platform in political communications. Elon Musk has the money to threaten other Republicans with primary challenges. All those are incredibly important factors. But, you know, for Trump, he's not running again, and he might tire on this if it does result in bad publicity.
I want to talk about those important factors because, David, people have been saying to me for the last few weeks, Elon Musk doesn't have that much power. Doge, it's not even an agency. It's sitting off here in left field. But doesn't he have all the power, right? He's got this massive, massive megaphone in Twitter, and he has made it clear he will primary and or humiliate anyone who stands in the way of his priorities. To me, that's massive power.
Yeah, I think we have to distinguish between an advisory committee without any statutory power or really any political base, and between that and the fact that Elon Musk doesn't just have influence with Donald Trump, as we've seen over the last 24 to 48 hours, but he has that influence because he doesn't leave his side. That has been part of it. He is with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. He's with him almost at every dinner. He's with him, and Donald Trump likes to consult with a wide array of people, but often will sort of decide what to do based on the last person he talks to. We've seen deals like this blown up in the past during his first term, and it was often just like this. He's looped into a deal every step of the way, which was the case here, and indicates that he's okay with it. And then somebody calls him and he says, "Sir, this is a horrible deal. You don't want your name on this." And then he blows it up and threatens not to sign it, or threatens to do something else that causes, congressional Republicans to run around in circles. But the Musk factor here is something new because for the time being, it's as if members of Congress are dealing with co-presidents in terms of the influence and how that influence is wielded. It's not just that Trump can go to social media and rifle off a tweet or a post on his own network that gets Republicans to stand at attention. But now you have somebody like Elon Musk who has an even broader following, if you will, at least on the X platform, who is doing the same and without waiting for Trump to set the table for what should be done. He's doing it on his own. And I think a lot of Republicans are trying to figure out simply how do we get to 218 votes in a way that satisfies those two men.
Is this what we're in for? Is this example one, Allie, of Elon Musk goes to Washington? He's not even there yet.
Absolutely. I think everyone is looking at this as the early example of what they're in for at least the next 2 years. The biggest difference, of course, is the fact that the margins will only get smaller and that Democrats for right now, for just the last week or so that's left of the year, still control the Senate. So that's an important piece of this when we consider that, yes, the House could eventually find something that they can pass, but it's also going to have to be something that is palatable to Senate Democrats and to Chuck Schumer. And so this is still the dynamic, the sense of divided Washington, despite the fact that come January, with the start of the new Congress and the inauguration of the president-elect, you will then have Republicans controlling all houses. But Democrats also are wise to the fact of what you guys are talking about right now, this idea that anyone who gets out in front of Trump or is seen to be puppet mastering him or anything of that like is often shown the door at some point in Trump world. It's why you have Democrats who are treating this situation quite seriously, but also doing some low-key trolling by saying President Musk. And then you have Hakeem Jeffries, who happens to also be releasing all of his social media statements, not on X, but on Blue Sky, as just another subtle, you could call it a subtweet, except it's an entire social media platform, but basically making his distaste for Musk known, even in the very platform that he's using to disseminate his message as the top Democrat. So I think everyone is very much looking at this as how Washington is going to work. I do think the other piece of this, though, with primary challenges is Trump has been always the kind of guy who, if you don't go along to get along with him, he's going to try to introduce a primary challenge. Certainly that's been the looming threat on the Senate side of the building for anyone who's up in 2026 and might be waffling on any of his cabinet confirmations. But at the same time, you can only threaten that so many times. And you also should probably make sure it's an area you can win in. I mean, the first person I think of who constantly faced this primary threat from Trump was Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. And she more than heavily avoided it, won her seat, and now is able to stand in Washington and stay that independent voice that she generally likes to preserve the right to be. And so primary challenges are tricky like that. The electorates don't always just do what you want them to do, though certainly Trump has more of a vice grip on his electorate than most politicians.
Okay, but I love that Allie brought this up, Sam, because Elon Musk could say, you know, you're going to get primaried, I'm going to bring up somebody else. But whomever he presents, right, to primary any of these Republicans, they need to win. And here's the problem. Elon Musk is out there confidently saying he's going to cut $2 trillion. And he can do it in business, right? You saw him do it at Twitter. He walked into Twitter, he cut staff, he cut benefits, he cut resources. And he said, look, Twitter still runs. But Elon Musk didn't need to get elected. He owns the company. Here he has himself in a situation where Donald Trump has already said, we're not cutting Social Security. We're not cutting Medicare. No cuts to defense and Homeland Security. There isn't $2 trillion left in the budget. If you think about all the things that elected officials need to protect in order to keep their seats.
Yeah, I mean, it's not possible to cut $2 trillion from the budget unless you're willing to touch the entitlement programs that Donald Trump has said he will never touch. Now, of course, Trump may change his mind, but that would be politically suicidal, and I think Trump knows that. So what ends up happening? You get a kind of version of what we just saw tonight, which is you do a different type of continuing resolution, but that type of continuing resolution doesn't have any of the sort of domestic discretionary provisions that the original one does. So this version cuts money that would have gone, for instance, to pediatric cancer research, which who's against pediatric cancer research, right? It's a $190 million provision they cut from one program. It would have funded pediatric cancer research for another 7 years, but that got cut in this version because there's nowhere else to cut. Now, everyone says, well, just pass it in a subsequent bill. But of course, as we know, that's quite hard. And so this is where the rubber meets the road. This is what you're talking about, which is at some point, lawmakers are going to say, you know what, I kind of like that disaster aid for Western North Carolina. I kind of need that farm aid for the constituencies in my home state. You know, that Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, it was kind of important for commerce up and down the East Coast. I kind of need that. And when Elon says, you know what, Doge wants to take it out, that's when the two sides meet.